Our next question comes from the our High Strangeness subreddit from username dmacerz. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. They say, "Hi Hal, you once spoke about the decision to not tell the public that was made with a group of people and adding up all of the pros and cons. Can you release any more info about the pros and cons of disclosure, or just specifically why would disclosure have been bad back then? Thank you."
Yes, early on in my participation in these kind of programs, I was invited to participate in a conference. At this particular time, I wasn't even told what the conference was about, but that I had to come because it was going to be the most important conference I'd ever participated in. So, okay. And so when I got there, myself and other people I knew from the intelligence community, from the DoD, and elsewhere. And I was told at the beginning that there was underway a plan to possibly reveal and disclose the fact that non-human intelligence was true, and there were crafts that had been retrieved under a crash retrieval program. And the question was, if given that this is supposedly the case, both Russia, China, ourselves, and so on had this kind of information, should this be disclosed to the American public? Well, I think everyone there, including myself, said, "Oh my God, absolutely." They said, "Okay, well, the way we're going to approach this, we're going to make up a list of all the things that would be affected by such a disclosure." So we made a long list. You start out with, okay, stock market might be affected, religious views might be affected, uh, countries' military aspects might be affected. So make a long list. We got some 60 items or something like this. When you finally get down to the weeds on this list, it was sort of like, okay, if we find out that Corporation A got access to materials from a crash retrieval program, but their competitor at Corporation B didn't, when this gets revealed, Corporation B is going to sue Corporation A. They're going to sue the government. Uh, this is going to be an absolute disaster situation. And so at the time, as we went through all that and added up all the numbers, as a group, we came to the conclusion that, there's hardly any way to do this because there's so much involved, first. And then secondly, there's no way to handle it piecemeal. You'd have to deal with everything all at once. And so at the time, like this was back some decades, it just seemed that, especially given that the whole subject area was still tinfoil hat and kind of subject with a lot of stigma associated with it, there's just no way to go forward with this. Now, that's in the past. Now, as we now see in the present, there's been a new approach, which was that, first of all, data has come out. The government has pretty much admitted that there's something to it all without giving any level of details. But nonetheless, we had an amendment proposed in Congress by Senator Schumer, who is, majority leader in the Senate, and Republican Senator Rounds, which they put out a multi-page document to be passed called the Disclosure Act, the 2023 Disclosure Act. And if you can believe it, in an actual government document, you have non-human intelligence mentioned over 20 times, and how this had to be addressed in some straightforward fashion. And so they come up with a whole list of ways to do that, having a presidential panel, having all the information passed on to the National Archives, to go through a process of saying what can be released when, and so on. I think that's a good amendment. It didn't pass in 2023, so they put the same amendment forward in 2024. I think once again it got shot down. But anyway, we have a map of how to do that. And so I think done correctly and under the right circumstances, I think the result is different today. And also the stigma that's associated with the area is now pretty much long gone, and for good reasons, by the way. I mean, back, 20, 30, 40 years ago, when we were into this, what was our data? Our data was some farmer seeing something flash across the sky. Then you had to decide, was he drunk or was this the real deal or whatever? But in the intervening decades, we now have the most unbelievable sensor systems up there. Forward-looking infrared radar, Aegis type instrumentation on ships. And so our sensor program has advanced so far that now you have multiple sensors, including pilots and eyes on, all reporting exactly the same thing and all the data correlating. That there's just no room anymore to say this isn't happening. So I think if we reconsider the idea that disclosure should come forth at the present time, I think there's I don't think there's any way we can avoid it if it's done correctly.